what would happen if the regime would change. We were kept completely in the dark, and Albania has suffered the most harshest regime. I mean, it is because of that past regime that we are suffering some difficult transitions, even after 30 years now.
On this week's episode of Engaging Marketeer, I am speaking with Elda Bajraktari from Albania. Elda works in HR, and she works with businesses and employees to help them better understand their responsibilities and their rights when they are working in Albania. I'm going to be speaking to Elda about how she got into that business and also what it was like with the regime change in Albania back in around 1990.
I have a cat and I love her so much. So
I'm surrounded by cat people. I really am. Cat people everywhere.
But apparently you are not a cat lover.
I'm not a cat person. No. There's a cat person in the office today. He's Hungarian. He's got loads of cats. Yeah.
Are you a dog person?
I am a dog person, yes.
I see. I'm a cat person. Maybe this is connected to my inner character, because I feel I can manage a cat easier than a dog. And
well, they take less looking after, that's true.
Yes, less looking after. It's smaller in size. Okay, you can have a small sized dog, but still it's smaller in size. And I feel the connection better with cats, not with dogs. Sometimes
Really?
I'm even scared. Yes.
No, I got into this discussion literally on a call yesterday. No, if you leave a dog at home and then you get home, your dog is going to be excited to see you. Doesn't matter how long you've left it. You could have left it 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days. That dog is going to be excited to see you. You leave a cat at home when you come back. The cat's like, what time do you call this? Where have you been? Where's my food?
My cat at home, she's waiting for us at the door.
Everyone says that. Everyone, my cat's different. My cat loves me.
Yeah. Every time, my mom, for example, because I'm living with my mom, when she goes out, I need this conversation to warm up somehow. So when my mom goes out and she comes back, there is a certain spot. She finds the cat there waiting for her every time. And I've also experienced the same. When we go out together and we get back home, she can hear us from very far. Once I park the car, she can hear us, and then she's at the door.
Waiting for food.
And giving me some love at the moments I never expect. For example, when I'm sleeping.
Waiting for food. Come on.
We also want food. We also want to be fed. We are also happy when somebody brings us a present or something unexpected. However, it is true. I'm going home, but I'm not giving her food every time I'm going home. I'm giving her food only when I miss for 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
But when I'm going out, in and out, no, I'm not giving her food every time I go in.
She'll learn. She'll learn the pattern.
And she still loves me. You cannot imagine what is the pleasure you get when she hugs my hand into her own hands.
Yeah. Looking for food. Yeah.
No, she wants me.
Of course she does. All cat owners think that. All cat owners think their cats love them. Reality is, if you had a heart attack, she'd eat you. You know, that's what.
Excuse me, if I have
If you had a heart attack, your cat would eat you. That's cats for you. They think, food.
Okay.
It's true. Well, I suppose we better crack on then, haven't we?
Yes.
It's gone, yeah.
I haven't prepared any special thing for today.
That's all right, neither have I.
Referring to the last conversation we had together, that you said that we don't go on a special script, but we will follow the conversation.
Follow the conversation, yeah. So you're based in Albania, is that correct?
I'm based in Tirana, Albania.
In Tirana, Albania. And you do public speaking?
I do human resources, and I do trainings sessions, workshops, seminars.
So what is it you like more? Because some people are they don't like speaking in front of people. They don't like the people looking at them and having to talk. It's a common fear that people have. So what's made you want to do that?
It is true. I've also had this fear actually, until I decided to face it very lately in 2022
That's very
when I
recent.
was, yes, and I was invited by my colleagues or by cooperators that knew my skills. I was invited to speak about career development, and this is how I cracked it somehow. I had the first sessions online, and then I started teaching publicly or face to face. Indeed, I love teaching. Every time I had to explain something to either job related or life related to a colleague, to a younger generation, or to explain something to an older generation, I was always labeled like very clear, crystal clear. Or I was always labeled like, oh, yes, now I understand it. So somehow I have always had the numb of teaching or of showing things. But I was hesitating for two main reasons. The one main reason was that because of my career orientation, I was thinking that if I go on a teaching, my career success would be depending much more on the others' performers rather than on my own performer. And the second thing was my sort of inferiority to the sense that am I fully capable or am I fully knowledgeable on this particular topic if I assume to address this topic in front of an audience. However, I have learned the lesson that you cannot be fully knowledge of everything and anything on this earth. What you have to do is to prepare yourself, is to focus on audience need. What is the audience looking for? Prepare the topics and have some sources to refer if you have questions that go beyond the planned conversation or beyond the planned session.
Because that is a common fear, I think, among people that I hear people that want to do podcasts, for example, but they think I can't do a podcast because why would somebody listen to me?
Exactly.
Why would somebody be interested in what I've got to say? And it holds a lot of people back from doing it. So you say you felt that worry before, so you didn't want to go on and teach, you didn't want to go on and speak because you were worried that why would people want to listen
Why
to
would
you?
people listen to me, and what would happen if somebody asked me a question and I may not be able to answer that question? Pretending that I should know everything.
But of course, you don't need to pretend you know everything. It's okay not to know stuff.
Definitely. But it took me a while to get to this stage. And it took me, my good friends and my good collaborators who knew my skills, that really pushed me and encouraged me to go on these sessions, because I would have never done this on a self-initiative.
Because they say with teachers, for example, with teachers in school, you, as a teacher, you don't need to know the whole book that the class is reading. You just need to be one chapter ahead of the students.
Yes, in 1998, I graduated English teaching. And that was quite an achievement for me, coming from northeast part of the country of Albania, which was, let's say, very not developed because the regime changed in 1990. And 1998, when I graduated English teaching, this was quite an achievement for me. And I was supposed to go and teach after my graduation. But then it was a combination of factors. It happened that the Kosovo crisis went out at that time. There were a lot of humanitarian agencies deploying in country. They were in need of English-speaking people in order to assist with interpretation, translation, office work. And they were paying well. So this was one reason that took me away from teaching. But the second reason, which I actually mentioned, was that I was always fearing that my career in teaching would be much more dependent on the students rather than on my own efforts, because I really wanted to be successful.
Yeah, and of course, teachers are only as successful as their students are successful, because you need them to do well for you to do well.
Exactly. You have to you need them to do well for you to do well. If they don't do well, something must be wrong with your performance as a teacher as well.
You mentioned the regime change there. That's quite a hot topic at the moment, particularly with what's going on in Iran in terms of possible regime change. What do you remember about that from that time, from the 1990, was it?
Yes, I was 14 years old at that time. I was a lot scared. I was afraid because we were grown up with the ideology that the regime that was in place was the best one. And there was so much uncertainty what would happen if the regime would change. Of course, I was young and I had no right of vote of everything, but the atmosphere was like that. Later on, I have understood that people living in the capital, they had much more information than us that were living outside the capital. I am coming from a town which is called Kukas. It is northeast of Albania, and it is bordered with Kosovo, or former Yugoslav Republic.
Yeah.
There were people that were somehow cheating the regime and able to watch TV stations abroad, and they could have some information, and they could have more information than myself or my family on what was life like in the Western and more developed countries. But me, myself, my family, we didn't have that information. So I was personally scared with the change of the regime. However, growing up, things changed and we could see what was really the benefit of the regime changing.
So at the time, you had no idea what Western life, Western civilization was like. You were kept completely in the dark from it.
We were kept completely in the dark, and Albania has suffered the most harshest regime, at least if you compare it with former Yugoslav and for former Russian, Soviet and Russian republics. We were extremely in dark. We could not travel. We didn't know what was going abroad. We didn't watch TVs abroad. So everything was inside the country, apart from a very, very small group, which was belonging to the very top management of the country. I can say that there must have been only one plane per week departing from our airport, while today you have hundreds of flights per day.
So what's your feeling about that time? Do you feel angry? Do you feel upset about what it was like before?
I cannot say I feel upset or angry. I can't say that I have developed real feelings about that time, but I can see the difference. I can see the change, and we are and I mean, it is because of that past regime that we are suffering some difficult transitions, even after 30 years now. And every change is a change, and people perceive change is different. You know, at some extent, you say that, I missed that time. You can hear that something you miss from that time. What is it? Is public order, for example. You can hear people of my age and even older saying that, we missed the time of public order. But there was one of the worst things of that regime was the discrimination amongst people because of propaganda issues, or the discrimination of people that were going against the regime. They were left behind on every aspect. They were forced to live in the most difficult conditions. They were forced to leave the areas. They were not given the right to study. They were left behind in every aspect, and not only the very small family where the problem occurred, but the whole larger family connected to that. So this has been the worst thing, I would say. People leaving people behind, discriminating, and not respecting human rights, and even going to tortures and to
Really?
the extremely difficult prisoning conditions.
And even despite all of that, there are people that go, "Oh, I miss the public order. I miss the fact that, you know, there wasn't, presumably you mean like that there wasn't petty crime on the streets, there wasn't littering, because people wouldn't do that because they wouldn't dare do
They
that."
wouldn't dare, yeah.
wouldn't dare.
But you know, those people that are referring to missing the public order of those years are not the ones that suffered those discriminations that I mentioned before.
No, I suspect they weren't, no.
So that's why you have these kind of categories.
Yeah. I mean, I remember at the time when Yugoslavia split up, they were supposed to be in the football tournament, the European Championships in 1992. Yugoslavia qualified, but they couldn't go into it for obvious reasons. Yugoslavia didn't exist anymore as a country, so Denmark went in instead and ended up winning it. Right now, there's a World Cup in America, which Iran has qualified for. And obviously there's possible regime change going on in Iran. And Iran's very unlikely to be at the World Cup because it's in America and America is at war with Iran. It's all a complete mess. I'm seeing some parallels between the two situations. Have you got any insights from your perspective, because obviously you were there when it happened, into what's going on right now with Iran, for example? Because they have a regime where obviously there's public order on the streets because people wouldn't dare, but things are changing. Can you see anything that's similar?
With the regime change, there is a similarity when it comes to the regime change. But in our case, in Albania's case, there was no need for extra interventions. If I can call U.S. intervention to Iran extra intervention. So in our country, we had violent turmoils. We had violent situations. We had demonstrations, protests on the streets, and people that got hurt. But the change of the regime went on much smoother and lighter than it is presumably going on in Iran. So despite the fact that we were in such a harsh regime, the change was not that violent and that bloody as it is going now in Iran.
That's good. That's good.
This is good.
How quickly did it happen?
In Tirana, in Albania, in less than 1 year. I think it was a matter of months, if I can recall it perfectly now. It was a matter of months. It started in December or late November, then it went on December, January. In February, we had the demonstrative destruction of the monument of the former dictator. And in March, we had the first opposition party established, and I think it was April, May, we had the elections. Again, in the elections of 1991, again, the ruling party won the elections, but in 1 year, the regime collapsed completely. We had re-elections, and then we had the opposition coming in power.
All right.
So it didn't really last. It didn't really last too long.
What was the first big change that you noticed from your day-to-day life?
From day-to-day life, the intangible thing is the freedom of speech. This has been very obvious. So people were free to speak, they could share their opinions. I remember my father, he used to be part of the former regime party. He was a member of the Communist Party at that time. And I can recall when I was little, he was always in fight with one of my uncles saying that, stop, don't speak because you risk to go in prison, you risk to go here and you risk imprisoning and this and that. But later on with the regime change, I didn't hear these conversations anymore, which means that people really felt the freedom of speech. They could share their opinions, they could share their unsatisfactions. Later on, we have also had economic development because of the private businesses, because of the movements, free movements, products, goods. So we started to be more exposed to the Western countries, and we have seen a lot of economic developments. Also, we have seen a lot of competition. In parallel with this, there is a lot of competition to the sense that you have to fight to be successful in your field of expertise or in what you want to build. If you want to make money or if you want to make career or if you want to make a good name or a reputation, you have to put a lot of efforts in it. It's not that easy.
So I always wonder what the changes are like on ground level. Because my girlfriend's Ukrainian, and she's obviously in the UK because of things that are going on in Ukraine. But she mentioned how not that long ago they had very little money. They had money, but they couldn't buy anything. So there wasn't stuff in the shops, there wasn't bread, there wasn't milk, there wasn't, you couldn't spend money. And then suddenly Ukraine changed from being a country where you couldn't buy anything to a country that had everything it needed. And it was a very, very rapid change where you could go into the shop and buy whatever you wanted. And it always surprises me what it's like on ground level. We see all the big things about statues being toppled and governments changing and leaders changing. But what are the little things that you don't necessarily know? Does the price of bread change, for example? Are you able to buy milk? What are the very small things that you notice?
It is true. We have also experienced that. That's why I said economic development, mentioning that from a country where you couldn't buy anything, even the food was sort of in portion, so you could buy only, let's say, 1 kilogram of meat per week, and you couldn't buy more.
It was rationed, so you couldn't buy.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you could buy everything. So you have everything in the market. You can go and look for all sorts of milks or meat or cheese or dairy or fruits, even fruits that are not produced in country but imported. So we have also experienced this even in the very early years of after the regime changed. I'm not speaking about now, because now we are very westernized, we are very equal. I mean, every time we travel abroad, we do not feel any big change to the sense of the access that we get to clothes, food, machines, cars, vehicles, transport means. There isn't any change. But in the very early of regime change, yes, you could buy anything here.
No. And I'm guessing it's something that you would never want to go back to the previous regime.
Definitely, no. To the past regime?
To the past regime?
No, never, ever. No one.
It's interesting because there's always some people that go, oh, it was better then. We prefer that.
But it is a very, very few of them. And this generation, if I was, I'm speaking about 30 years, almost 30 years now. So those who were 50 at that time are 80 this year. So the generations that were really experiencing or that were really enjoying, if I can use this, the then time regime, they are passing away. So there isn't.
I mean, well, we had a problem here some years ago where we voted, obviously, to leave the European Union because there were a lot of old people who thought life was better back then, and they're the ones that voted to leave primarily, and it's the younger people that didn't want to. So the older ones voted to leave, then they died and left us with the problem, which was nice.
And you are regretting now?
Well, I certainly.
I mean, UK.
I put that's the thing. Depends who you ask. Depends who you ask. I think if they did a vote again, we'd vote to stay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people who voted to leave are dead. They're older. A lot of the younger people wanted to stay. Because nobody can point to a single benefit, a single advantage to leaving. Not one.
Interesting.
Not one. So it was a massive mistake. It should never have been proposed that we vote for it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. European Union is our aspiration.
Yeah.
We want to be, Albanians. We want to be part of Europe.
Well, there's a space. There's a space. We've left you one. You can have it.
Yes, we are aspiring to get into European Union, and we have got since 2009 the visa-free regime, and we are traveling. And for example, I have experienced myself what was it like to travel before that and after that. So it's such a relief. Before that, you had to file an application to get a visa. You could get it, you could not get it. You had to arrange with the expecting part from the other side. Nowadays, it's very easy. You just buy a ticket, you go on a plane, and off you are. You enjoy it. Yeah. So we are aspiring to get into EU in order to get the other freedoms that come from working, from living, from because you can travel but you cannot live in another country. And we are also aspiring to get the regulation, the regulatory environment and everything to be 100% pursuant to European Union.
Right. So there's a lot of benefits to it. It's just a shame this country didn't realise that when we were asked to vote on it.
It's a pity. There are a lot of demands as well. Because of my experience, I am somehow aware of the chapters that you have to go through, what you have to prove, and what is the regulation. So there is a lot of legislation approximation, but this is the easiest part, because after the approximation that you have to enforce that legislation, you have to inspect if the legislation is being there and is being properly implemented. But because of that, people want to be part of the EU, so that it is somehow a guarantee that everything will be according to the books and everything will be properly managed and ruled.
It's definitely a good thing in my eyes, anyway. It's just not everybody in this country agrees. Let's talk about what you do. Let's talk about HR.
HR.
That's exciting. That's what people want to know. So is it businesses you work with on a HR level?
Excuse me?
Do you work with business owners with HR, or is it just on a teaching capacity you work?
I do both, business owners and also teaching capacity. It depends on the projects.
So what sort of industry, sort of businesses do you work with?
I have done retail, so retail sales. I've done pharmaceuticals. And pharmaceuticals is both distribution and retail. I have done marketing, advertising, services, information, again, retail sales, but industrial. It was do-it-yourself. Basically, private-owned companies run by Albanian owners and sometimes Albanians and other international shareholders. While for the teaching I have done, or let's say the training sessions, they have been either supported by national organizations in country, operating in country, or even international organizations operating in country that were targeting HR or that were targeting audiences from different companies or different entities, could be both mixed private, public, corporate people.
And what's it like for employees in Albania? Because in the UK, employees have a lot of rights. You've got rights as soon as you go for an interview, for example, you have rights. So what's it like in Albania compared to what it's like in the UK?
In Albania, employees have a lot of rights too. The rights do not start from the interviewing stage. The rights start from the employment stage. However, these rights are somehow connected to the longevity with the company. So the longer you are with a company or with an employer, the more rights you have. And the more difficult will become the contract termination if you want to terminate. Here, the employment is regulated by a law, which is the labor law. And this labor law is being used by the private companies, private sector, and a few entities of the public sector. Meanwhile, we have another law, which is the law on the civil servants, that is applicable for public administration. There are similarities between the two laws when it comes to the rights and when it comes to the employee rights. And again, employees have a lot of rights. And we have also some special laws regulating professions like police, military. So apart from the general employment law, they have some particular typical laws developed for regulating. It is called special law for police or special law for military. The employees' rights here are from the working, so how many hours they can work, when should they rest, how should they rest, the leave, paid leave that they have or unpaid leave that they can have, absences they can have, or absences which can be paid, especially in cases when you are sick, absences that cannot be paid. Again, they are connected with sickness, but it is for a longer period they can be absent without pay and not lose the job. And this is related to family members or to children, right to look after the children that are up to a certain age, that can be either born children or adopted children. Then it will be the performance management, then it will be the behavior, then it will be the job that they have to do, what is the communication, and you have to be very, very careful in the whole employment relationship management in order to have first a fair environment and then to avoid any potential litigation for the entity that you are responsible for.
The reason I asked about interviews, for example, is that in this country, a lot of people don't know it, but there's certain questions you can't ask at a job interview, for example, as an employer. So you can't ask the interview candidate if they smoke. You can't ask them if they have children. You can't ask them if they're planning to have children, because they're deemed to be questions that would prejudice you against hiring that person. So if you're interviewing a woman that's planning to have a family, you might not give her the job because you don't want her to go on maternity leave. If you're interviewing someone who smokes, you might not give them the job because you don't want them taking cigarette breaks every hour and losing 5 minutes of the day. So you're not allowed to ask these questions, which most people don't know in this country. Is there anything similar to that in Albania?
There is so this situation is similar to Albania as well. So you are not allowed to ask such questions, but this is not something that is sanctioned in the labor law or in such law. It is mainly sanctioned in the laws that avoid discrimination.
Yeah.
And for the smoking, I have never thought of that, of asking someone if the person is smoking or is not smoking. But for the women, for example, yes, we are not allowed to ask them about these family plans, children, and whatsoever. But I can, honestly speaking, it also depends on the way how you set up the conversation and how you start understand things. So the idea is that there is the book, but in the way you pose the conversation, you might be able to find out certain information that you cannot ask directly, honestly speaking. So it depends. I can tell you that HR is a little bit different here when it comes to private, public sector, or even corporates. Private sector is a little bit more flexible. They may dare to ask such questions, maybe not directly, because as you mentioned, even in Albania, people are not very much aware, or they haven't been very much aware of their rights, honestly. But people are getting more and more aware of their rights with the days passing by. And even if they don't know them, the things themselves, they always have a reference where to check, who to consult, who to ask. And this is also subject to the will that they are going into a relationship. If they are going on a goodwill into a relationship, I mean employment relationship, nothing happens. But when they join or when they go on with a bad intention, with a bad will on the employment relationship, they will always find ways where to ask, what to ask, how to create a problem, what to create, and this and that. So getting back, it is true, some of those questions you cannot ask even here, but the fact is that in some ways, in some private sector companies, you manage to get this information through the way how you pose the conversation.
So when, obviously a lot of people in this country don't know those things and they make mistakes. And mistakes when you're interviewing somebody or when you're hiring an employee and you don't know the law yourself can be very costly, and you can end up getting sued. You must have seen some mistakes employers have made in your role. What sort of mistakes have people made in terms of things that can be really costly for them?
We are again referring to the interviewing stage, yes?
Or anything to do with employment, so it might be after.
With the employment, okay. Yeah. Because for the interviewing stage, here there isn't that much awareness that you can, let's say, file a case, or you can file a case for discrimination for bad interview questions. This is not the environment so far. But when it comes to employment, the biggest mistake that is happening here is firing without grounds or unjustified. It is called termination of the employment contract without justified grounding. This is the most common mistake here, and this is something that costs a lot of litigation to the company, because according to the Albanian legislation, the employment goes to different stages. You have the first 3 months, which are probationary period, and you can terminate the contract with a 5 days notice, very easy. When you go to 6 months, it will be 2 weeks notice. When you go to 2 years, it will be 1 month notice. But apart from the notice, you have to respect a so-called procedure on how you terminate. And apart from the procedure, you have to have the cause. So there are 3 elements you have to combine when you want to terminate. And most of the employers are failing in combining the 3 of them, because they might have the reason, but they neglect the procedure, and then you get fined, you get penalized for not proceed for the procedure. They respect the period of notice, but they forget the procedure. They respect the period of notice, but they forget, they do not give you the real cause. They fail to ground the cause for termination. So, according to reports, there is a high number of termination causes and termination file suits in our courts, coming from both public and private sector. And there are a lot of decisions that are not implemented. So final court decisions for reinstatement, for re-employment, which are not implemented by the entities that were found in violation.
And do employees typically in Albania now know that they've got these rights? That if they are,
Yeah, they do. They do.
They do.
Yes, they do.
They do.
They do. I am doing HR since 2006, so it's almost 20 years now. With the people awareness of their rights has changed extremely fast in the last 7-8 years. It hasn't been, people were not aware of their rights, but now they are fully aware of their rights. What is still happening is that they are reluctant to go, especially the young generation, they are reluctant to go to court, fearing the presumable discrimination that they might have when looking for the other coming job. Because if the future potential employer finds out that I am in a court case with my previous employer, this future potential employer will fear that our relationship will end up at court as well. I don't know how clear I am.
No, yeah.
They are aware of the right, but they are not exerting the right, especially younger generations, because they say, oh, I have to go to the court. Okay, the court takes time, huh? Because you have the first instance court, it will take you 1 year or something until you get a decision. Then one of the parties will appeal. Then the appealing will take 3 years. Then again, the unsatisfied party will go to Supreme Court. It will take another 5 years, so it will last a lot. And younger generations will say, oh, I'm not going to spend 10 years in the court now. I want to get another job. I want to go on. And I don't want my future potential employer to think bad of me and to think that I take cases to the court.
No, I can see that, and I can see how people would think that they don't want to scupper their chances of getting another good job by thinking that they're the problem employee, and it's a shame, really, isn't it? So people are missing out on what they're owed, on what they should be getting, because they're afraid that it's going to affect their future chances.
I'll tell you a personal experience.
Okay.
I had an employment relationship, and it went on that bad. I am personally in court with my previous employer. I went on a competition for another role. This is again somehow related to the previous conversation we had together on the kind of the questions you can pose during the interview. And I went through all the interview stages. It was an international company established in Albania, but they were legally supported by a local company here in country. And when I reached the very final stage, I was not asked directly, do you have a court case ongoing with your previous employers? But I was mentioned that, listen, if you are finally selected, you will be required to provide papers related to court situation and this and that, because this company will not be very fond of the people that are in court cases with their previous employers. I got the message. I stayed silent because I didn't want to reveal my own information. But I'm 100% sure that they already knew that I was there, because there are public registers and they should have, they have verified that. And I didn't get the job, even though I went on all the stages of the interviews, met the top managers residing abroad. And just because of this, I was cut off.
That's a shame, isn't it?
It is a shame.
It's not fair.
But even, but this is a shame, and this is not good, because at some extent I have 25 years working experience. I'm in HR. I know my rights. I know what's right, what's wrong. And still, after that moment, I felt a little bit of shake in myself, saying, okay, was I wrong doing that, or was I right? So if this situation puts me in doubt of my own actions, imagine what could this do to other people with less years of experience, with less knowledge of their rights, and with less awareness of what's right or what's wrong.
So is this something that you look to address when you do your trainings? Are you looking to educate people on their rights as well, so they know when they don't make these mistakes themselves?
I do. Normally when I do training sessions, I refer to the rights, I refer to the dignity, I refer to fair treatment, and I refer to fair treatment to the sense that fair does not really mean to be nice or kind. It means to be fair. What's right, what's wrong. You are entitled of that, or you are not entitled of that. One big mistake that is done here with in the employment relationship is the bad communication. This can be seen both in private sector, in public sector, maybe even in corporates at some extent, because you have the personal feelings and personal, let's say, affiliations interfering and avoiding you somehow from the cold professional communication. So I'm really pushing hard and saying that, listen, we are talking about fair. We're not talking about being lovely or unlovely, or being likable or unlikable. We have to be right.
Yeah.
And what's right for somebody is not right for someone else, of course, because rights start and end. They have a limit. Where my right is over, it's because someone else's right has its starting point. So yes, I try to do that. Even I have a current engagement now with a public company, and I'm advising on HR issues, and I am really careful on what I'm advising, and really putting a lot of stress into dignity, fair treatment, fair communication. And of course, basing everything onto the legislation.
Yeah. Do you find that most companies on the whole, they want to do the right thing by their employees? They want to be fair?
They all say they want to do fair. Who am I to say that they are not doing fair? But the problem that I personally see is not really with the company as such, but with the people in certain management roles. I personally believe in management, and believe that management is is a spirit which is somehow transmitted into lower levels. And things are changing. Companies want to do, they are somehow obliged to do better things and proper things because of the lack of the workforce. We are facing a lot of immigration, a lot of brain drain, and companies have somehow changed their attention and their attitude towards employees, being more open, more communicative, sticking to the entitlements, so respecting the entitlements granted by the labor legislation, which is good, but the hurting feeling is that this is not coming naturally as a desire, but it is an obligation based on the conditions and based on the market in general.
That's an interesting what you just made there. You said you're experiencing brain drain, and did you say emigration? So correct me if I'm wrong, but is Albania losing potential workforce because they're
Yes,
leaving?
we are.
Because you're leaving Albania.
Yes, they are leaving. We are losing a lot of medical staff, nurses, doctors. We are losing a lot of engineers, construction, electrical, mechanical, everything. We are also losing a lot of unskilled workers.
Is that because they can earn more money elsewhere?
Sure, they can earn more money elsewhere. They can build their lives elsewhere, and they can get the basics livings easier elsewhere.
And that elsewhere, are we talking Germany,
Western
presumably?
country,
Yeah.
Germany a lot, UK a lot, Italy, Greece.
Even Greece. Oh.
Yes, we have a lot of people living in Greece, a lot of. But the recent years, Germany has got a lot of medical staff from us, nurses especially. There were a massive outgoing. Doctors as well, massive outgoing. And we are not producing nurses and doctors to the sense of recovering the needs. And there is a gap between, or there isn't, you cannot see a proper demand and supply analysis. For example, when I used for pharmaceutical sector, when I worked for pharmaceutical sector, we were suffering to get qualified pharmacists because the speed of the business outrolling was so high, you couldn't get people. There were only 100 pharmacists being graduated every year from the university. They had to go through the test for licensing. Not all of them were successful. And you cannot hire people who are not licensed. So let's say out of 100, you could hire 70. But we were not the only pharma industry. There were many other pharma industry. And there is no change. So the government, when they are deciding on the quotas for the students, they are not changing. They are not expanding. Say, okay, why 100, 200, 300? If you see that the market is expanding this way,
so they're not changing with the needs.
They are not changing with the needs. So this is why we are suffering, and there is no proper supply and demand analysis.
So that's a real problem for Albania then.
And it is a real problem. Okay, we have also the other side of the coin. There are some predictive analysis. I cannot really base them where exactly, but there are some predictive analysis that people will return. So we had this massive outgoing of nurses, and the expectation is that they will return because they were leaving the country with the expectation that they will go and do their nurse according to our nurse definition, which is only needle, blood pressure, this thing. And the nurse, in our perception, does not contain the sanitation or cleaning the patient. When our people face this reality, they got somehow disappointed. They said, okay, I'm making money, but this is not the nurse I know. This is sanitation, this is cleaning. And this went against their expectation, against their aspiration somehow. But still, there is a real gap in years from the time that they have left the country until they will come back. Even when they will come back, their reintegration will be difficult.
Yeah.
Because they will be used with another environment. No matter how much we are progressing in all the regulations and everything, still the whole society is different. Their children will not want to come back because they are get used with the schools there.
Yeah.
And so there is an ongoing onion-shaped or onion layers problem in that.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're out of time. I mean, we could talk about that all day because I mean, we've got problems here. We've got a lot of people coming in to do work, but since Brexit, we've lost a lot of people that were skilled workers. We've lost a lot of people that do the work that, quite frankly, we're not very good at. So we've lost a lot of the Polish, for example, and they're very good at a lot of things, and we're crap at those things. So it's really difficult in this country now to find a joiner, a woodworker, because no one's teaching those skills. No one is learning those skills. So the quality craftsmen, they've gone back to Europe, and we're really, really struggling to find people who can do that here. So it's similar problem, but slightly different angle to it. But yeah, problems are all over the place. It just needs sorting out somehow, doesn't it? Somebody needs to get a grip on it. So, Elda, for anyone listening to this, thinks, I want to talk to you more, I want to reach out to you, I want to work with you, I want you to come in and do talks for me, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh, they can reach me in LinkedIn because I'm active there. They can reach me in my Gmail account, which is name and surname @gmail.com. I can share even telephone number, but LinkedIn and Gmail, I think, is enough.
Perfect. I will put the link for your LinkedIn and the email address. I will put that in the podcast description. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's going to be below in the description. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, whatever, it'll be in the show notes below the podcast. So,
I see.
Elda, thank you very much for joining me on the Engaging Marketeer.